and welcome to This Week in James City County. I'm your host, Renee Dahlman. Today, I am once again sitting down with County Administrator Scott Stevens. Welcome, Scott.
Well, Happy New Year, Renee. My
Happy
first
New
time
Year
back
to
in
you.
2020, so great to be back.
When do we stop saying Happy New Year?
It's probably the last time for me
Okay.
until 2021.
Can't wait.
That's right.
All right. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. A lot of stuff going on. You want to just get started?
The holidays were really great for me. We slowed down a little bit, but I will tell you, January has been off and running, and it's been a really, really busy time for our staff and our board of supervisors. And so I do want to talk through some of that.
Okay.
Before, I do want to at least recognize, it's been a time of sadness for some. We've had 3 deaths over in our family, James City County family, over January, which were all unexpected. And I do send condolences out to families and friends and co-workers, and I do want to mention them. I don't want to get in the habit of missing somebody, but these 3 just seem to come up to the January month. And the first is Mary Ann Clark. She was a retired employee from James City County, a really outgoing somebody. I had the opportunity to meet her a time or two. She was also the mother of one of our directors and the grandmother of one of our police officers. And so there's a long legacy with James City County. And I do want to, again, just recognize her service and that her passing. And another unexpected passing for us happened at our regional jail with Major Angeletta Moore. Again, I serve on the jail board. Major Moore was really great to work with, really unexpected, and one of those things that it's just hard to sort of process through the shock of that and working what you really don't expect to have happen. And then the third, and really all are sad and tragic, but the third is a very young gentleman who was a part-time employee with us that was one of the young men that went out canoeing and drowned at the end of January, Ben Lemming, who was coming back to work in a part-time status with us. And again, our Parks and Rec staff very, very saddened by that. And I just want to at least recognize those 3 individuals and just their families and let them know they're in our thoughts and prayers. So any rate, I'll move on from that,
Okay.
but that's part of life. And again, they do matter to us, even after retired and otherwise. So,
Right.
in terms of a busy January, our board started January 2nd. So we were off January 1st. So January 2nd, they were here. They had the organizational meeting where they choose their chairman and vice chair and their boards, where they want to serve on boards and commissions. Mr. Eisenhower remains our board chairperson. So I think for continuity, that's easy for me. That was nice. He's been easy to work with, and I look forward to working with him in 2020 as well. Supervisor Hipple remains our vice chair, and again, he certainly is very capable of filling in when Mr. Eisenhower is not available. So those are good choices, at least from staff standpoint, and the board seemed pleased with that. They did make minor changes to boards and commissions, and those are available if citizens have interest in that. We would share that. And then probably the most noticeable is their seating order change. And we're not punishing. If folks were wondering, we did, in fact, during that meeting, just draw numbers out of a hat. And so there's, other than the chairman who sits next to me, to my right, the seating order moved to Supervisor Hipple, Supervisor Larson, Supervisor McGlennon, and the Supervisor Sadler. And again, that's just the randomness of how that goes. So it's we've done that for some period of time. And again, when folks wonder why we move people around, that's why. So
Now, years ago, when they would do that, they would draw the names, and then they would all physically get up and go and switch places, and it was quite entertaining.
interesting. Well, again, it's still fun
Right.
and pretty festive. And at any rate, if folks are wondering why they moved around, that's why. They just want to do that, and it's randomized seating outside of the chairman. From that, the board did participate. They had a January 6th meeting with a VACO VML Day Finance Forum in Richmond. So the board, at least a majority, spent the day with myself and our finance director, learning more about the upcoming budget at the state level, what that means to us, and trying to make sure we're as prepared as we can be for assembling and creating our local budget to understand what's happening at the state level. And so I appreciate their participation there. From that, we held an Employee Service Award January 10th at Busch Gardens. All of our Board of Supervisors came out to that. I will tell you, it was, from my viewpoint, a really great event. We had 250-plus employees out there. Busch Gardens couldn't have been a better host, and I do want to thank them for allowing us to come out there and for their staff. For me to ask to use the Globe Theater or A Theater seemed to be an easy ask when I saw all of their staff and all of our staff that it took to support the event. It really is a bigger ask than I initially thought, but the feedback from our employees has been very, very positive, and that's why we do that. We want to thank and recognize and celebrate their service with James City County. Our longest service this time was a gentleman with 40 years of service for James City County, and so that's a pretty impressive legacy there to spend that long with one organization. And again, I would encourage folks to go out and recognize we've got videos out there and some information on our service awards. So we're continue to celebrate them over the coming year. January 14th was a regular meeting for our Board of Supervisors. Again, it happened to be a rather lengthy agenda, so I'll move through it rather quickly. And then if anybody has questions, they certainly can call me. I'd be happy to talk more about that. A number for me is 253-6603. Feel free to call 253-6603. Any questions related to our board meetings or anything else going on with James City County, I'll be happy to try to address those. We did recognize a retiree, Kenny Driscoll, came before the board just to I guess, be recognized for us to thank him. He served as our fire marshal. He had retired. We did a proclamation in recognition of one of our volunteers, Miss Robin Bledsoe, who had served on the Planning Commission and most recently on our EDA board. And then we also had recognition of James City County as a Digital Counties Survey winner in 2019. We placed fifth nationally with communities up to 150,000 for the best use of technology practices in getting services out. And again, I think that speaks very well for our staff and the science community we are, and to compete with localities much larger, probably much better funded and much better staffed, and still to place nationally. And that speaks well to what we do in James City County.
But they do not have better staff. They're better staffed.
Yeah, that's a great, I meant to say it that way if I didn't. I think our staff's pretty phenomenal.
Yes, we are.
But I just meant they have more in numbers.
Right,
That's what you're clarifying.
There we go.
So thank you for that.
And we're humble too. So.
Most of the time, right? Most of the time. And again, the consent agenda for the board in their January 14th meeting, they did do a service agreement for household chemical cleaners. Again, we do 5 pickups a year, or 5 drop-offs a year. We do it through our VIPSA, one of our partners. You can come out. The first one happens to be February 8th, 8 to 12 at War Hill High School, and then there's another one in April. So February 8th, 8 to 12 at War Hill High School, and then again in April. 5 times a year, so if you miss one of these, but it's paints and other chemicals that you just don't know what to do with. And then we added a position for Old Town Medical Dental Center. They wanted a marketing and communication specialist, and the board did approve that.
Yep.
We had 4 public hearings, a pre-budget public hearing, not a whole lot of information, just trying to get input from the community. We had a few speakers for that. Amendment to the code for metal detectors. I will talk more about that in a few minutes. We've generated quite the conversation around metal detecting on county property. In addition to the AFD, which was fairly non-controversial, and then some discussion of amendment to a master plan at the promenade at John Tyler. It was proffer a master plan amendment. Ultimately, those 3 items were approved by the board, but again, back in the January meeting. 2 considerations for the board. We talked about part-time positions and moving some. We've been talking about it for 3 or 4 months, really September, back in November, and this was the final action where we're taking part-time employees that we've had on payroll is what we called on-call or temporaries for years. So they really weren't temporaries. When that was brought to our attention, and HR staff did work through that with legal, and the thought was, hey, we really ought, if we need a person year after year, week after week, whether it's 5 hours or 10 hours or 20 hours, they ought to become a regular part-time employee. And so we made that change. And what that does for them is if we do annual salary increases, they would be granted an annual salary increase subject to funding, but our part-time regulars do get typically a salary increase along with our full-time staff when that's granted. And if they work more than 20 hours a week, they would get a proration of paid time off. So if they work 20 hours a week and we have a holiday that most people get 8 hours, they would get half because they're working basically half time. So that 20 hours and above on part-time would get some prorated time off. And we've made that change and impacted, I say several hundred employees. It was a significant number of employees who moved from this temporary or on-call to part-time regular. And so I think a good change for our employee base and the right thing for us to do as an organization. We also authorized or asked the board to authorize an assistant director of community development. It's one we've talked about as we've sort of grown things over time. We had eliminated that position some years ago, and looking at the workload and the volume and trying to keep up and comp plan revision and strategic plans and these other things. We've got a lot going on over in the community development side, and it just felt that was the right thing to do, along with the board's interest in this land preservation, whether it's part of the PDR program, the purchase of development rights or conservation easements or outright purchase of property. Somebody has to manage that. And so this assistant director position will be sort of that lead person in that, along with the other planning staff, helping as needed and as we go forward in time. But a lot of support for that, and so we did move forward with that, or the board approved that as well. They had a number of appointments that they made to the Planning Commission, being their first meeting, Board of Equalization, VIPSA, our Virginia Peninsula Public Service Authority, the one that does recycling, and our chemical pickup or drop-off sites, and the Community Services Coalition Board of Directors. So those are out there for community to see as they want to learn more about the board appointments. So that gets us through one meeting.
Okay.
Well, actually, meeting number 2 in January.
Right.
The board's next meeting in January, they did want to hold a short retreat. So January 25th, the board did hold about a 3 to 4 hour retreat. Anheuser-Busch Brewery was our host for that, and I want to say thank you to them. Their facilities were outstanding. We had about an hour tour following that, and just you know what they do and you know it's there, but seeing the scope and scale and their dedication and the quality and all of those things and the volume of what they do, it's absolutely amazing. And, they have a number of products there that are shipped overseas that we don't even see here.
Wow.
And then they have a lot of product that we do see here. But I just want to thank them for there and welcome their new general manager and John Armstrong, who gave us their operations gentleman, who gave us a tour through. It has been at this brewery for over 20 years and certainly knew the ins and outs of the process. So we retained a little of that, but what I left with was just knowing they really are a good corporate community business to have here, and really appreciated that. In terms of the retreat, the board did talk about strategic plan. We put that in place some years ago. They were just talking about sort of where you are, what have we done, and how's it looking. So we spent an hour with that. The board discussed residential proffer impact and change of state law and what that means to us and how it would impact development. And so we've given them some options to consider of things that we could put forward to developments that come forward in the future. And then they discussed just budgeting priorities. So as we get into our FY 21-22 budget process, we can try to at least direct some dollars towards what they believe is important for the community as well.
We're having a phone call in the office. I think somebody's already got it. I think we're good. We can keep rolling.
Very good. So again, the retreat went very well. The board came out of that and then moved into their January 28th work session. And so that just flowed them from one meeting to another. And in the work session, they really spent the first hour at a JCSA Board of Directors meeting and talked about future rate studies. They had a consultant who's been working on that, and so they spent about an hour looking through that. And I would send people to that work session and online with the JCSA Board of Directors meeting for information on that. But we've been doing 13.5% increases in water rates. That is still some increases needed, but nowhere near that 13% mark. And I think that'll be reflected in the budget as folks see that put out later this spring. They did do a pre-budget discussion with our finance director. We did talk about how 2019 and 2019 ended because we finally have all of our audited numbers, how 2020 is tracking and doing very good this year, and then what we sort of expect going in terms of additional revenues and cost into FY 21 and 22. And so not a lot of depth there, but a lot of good information in terms of history and then a little bit about where we're headed. And then they made one appointment to the Planning Commission. So they've got the Planning Commission full again. Is that enough on meetings?
That's a lot. It was a busy month.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. I do want to mention in terms of some other things in the community and that have been out there, and I hope people are aware, if they have an interest, that our pool had some electrical issues that started in late November. It was closed through December, and I will assure you our staff and consultants and all were working to figure out why we were having some electrical issues. And we had folks that felt tingling in the water, so we didn't have anybody hurt. But when our staff heard that, we did shut the pool down until it tried to figure out. And what we really learned through the process, it's not uncommon. Our pool is, I think, just over 30 years old, so it's been in service a long time. And what typically happens is the way pools were grounded, that just can become disconnected over time. And I believe that's what happened to our pool. For whatever reason, we had some current in the water. We have since regrounded it. We've had electrical engineers working on it. We've had code staff working on it. And we have had the pool recertified to be safe, and it's full of water. Opened again February 1st. So for those that have missed the December and January, and I know there are a number because I've heard it.
Right.
It wasn't that we didn't know what to do. It took us a few weeks to figure out what to do, and that was working with experts to figure out why.
Okay.
But we've worked through that process of bidding and getting the work done. We did complete some other maintenance work while the pool was down, so that may be noticed. But again, I'm very pleased with the way our staff worked through that. I'm really happy that it's back open.
Yes.
So it is back open. The other part of that at the rec center, we've had a workout room addition that we had added, has been partially open over the last month or so. It will be fully open in early February. So I would encourage you, if you haven't been to the rec center in a while, the workout space I think will be mostly appreciated. I understand we have messed up some of the way the equipment was oriented and habits of people. If I was
Okay.
on one machine and you were on another, we used to be able to talk.
Oh.
And now we've moved the equipment maybe where we can't speak. So that's
Oh, that's a big deal to some people.
that is a problem for some, and I'm not
Mhm.
sure how to solve that. But the overall comments have been very positive about the new space.
Okay.
All of the workout equipment has TVs, so you can get up there and plug in. And if you want to watch something, it's really pretty easy to do, which for me makes the workout not quite as drudgerous.
Right.
So
Right.
anyhow, I think folks will be very pleased, and that is opening in early February.
Okay.
I mentioned metal detecting in one of our meetings.
Mhm.
The board did make an amendment and we've had a lot of commentary on metal detecting within our parks, and I think rightfully so. Folks are very concerned about the history here and the artifacts, and we are a community that has a number of maybe undiscovered things out there, and you certainly don't want to lose history or have it dug up in a way that doesn't allow the most to be learned from it.
Right.
And so I do think the concern is real. We had also had a number of requests over the years from individuals who wanted to do metal detecting primarily on our beach, but if we opened it up everywhere, they'd probably go everywhere. And so our Parks and Rec director had done some researching of other communities around us, which to see what their practice had been. And most communities allowed metal detecting on beaches. And so the recommendation to the board was to change the code to allow the Parks and Rec director to authorize metal detecting within our parks. So that's a little broader than just beach, and I believe there's some concern related to the broadness of it,
Okay.
and then probably some concern related to anywhere could be a problem. The beach as well, and the beach is an area we built, so it's had a lot of disturbed earth. It's unlikely to have artifacts, but it's not to say they couldn't, I guess, wash up or get dislodged somewhere else and come down the river. It's not to say they couldn't somehow be under the sand that's there. But what we do with the beach is really sand we import in. And so
Right.
what I believe will be found and what has been found in the first month or so, or a couple of weeks of metal detecting, have been cans and things that really it's nice to have off the beach, quite frankly. So our hope is that we will allow this during off-peak times, meaning September to May, and then May to September, we will not allow it. And it's only allowable on the beach.
Okay.
Other areas in the park at this time aren't permissible, and if we have other areas that we would allow it, you'd have to be permitted, you'd have to work through Parks and Rec, and it'd be pretty specific, and there'd be a purpose. And maybe a purpose is we want to go out and have a metal detecting group go into our playground and just make sure that in all that chip wood, we don't have metal in there, right? Somebody hadn't lost something. And so there could be those kind of limited areas or isolated events where I think we would do it outside of that. But with all the discussion, both folks that wanted us to allow it and folks that are now concerned that we have set up a meeting February 6th at our rec center, so we'll have more to share after that meeting. 6 o'clock p.m. on February 6th, 5301 Long Hill Road. So if folks haven't heard or missed the meeting, come to the meeting or call us and we'll talk more after that and see where we go. So more discussion coming on metal detecting, I'm sure.
Is that the first time you've ever had metal detecting as a topic on any of your previous locations?
I haven't had a beach before.
Okay.
And so I will tell you, we had a one downtown project where we dug up the road, and we basically dug up 3 feet of road in our middle of our downtown and put it back. And what I found is there were plenty of people that wanted to metal detect.
Okay.
And there was quite an interest in how we would preserve what history they would find there. And we did work with a historical group that does metal detecting. So we didn't do the archaeology correctly, but in the midst of the construction project, they did pull out a lot of old artifacts. And we retained the right as the city to hold those artifacts because they were ours.
Okay.
So we didn't open it up broadly. So I have been around it before.
Okay.
But it was a project-specific event where folks just didn't want to miss the opportunity to find artifacts that maybe hadn't been uncovered and had been under the road for 50 or 100 years. And they pulled out some fun stuff. So from that standpoint, there was some bit of history. It's not the same as the archaeology and the concerns that are talked about here in terms of what we were able to offer there. But so, yes, I guess not the first time.
Okay.
But this has been a little broader conversation in the community so far than what I've experienced before, which I think is great as well.
Absolutely. And hopefully everybody will be able to come to the meeting and a compromise will be reached that everyone can live with.
You know, what I find is that people understand, they get better. And that for some, it will be such a bad thing that we may not get a compromise, but that's the goal. It's trying to understand each other's viewpoint. what I really hope is that we will sort of reach an agreement where we can let it go till May, because again, it's only May. So we're talking March, April, really, February, March, April, I guess. So a few more months. Let us get through that and then sit back down the May, June timeframe and reevaluate. And we may decide that we shouldn't allow it.
Okay.
Or allow it with parameters or some other oversight other than just the Parks and Rec director. So we're certainly open to the discussion. We just want to make sure we've given the community a chance to be part of that and not approve it and disapprove it month to month to make it that quick a reaction.
Right. And the key is a decision has not been made already. It's still in the discussion
not
point.
in terms of the long time. That we have, the only decision made is the board has authorized the Parks and Rec director he can make the decision to allow metal detecting. The only area he has authorized that is the Sandy Beach at Jamestown Beach.
Okay. Very good.
More to come.
Yeah.
All right. And then the other thing I would like to mention is, again, just trying to engage the community. We rehired a communications director, I guess I say rehired. I guess that's right. We hired somebody who'd been here before.
Right.
That wasn't where I thought I might be in the beginning, but it has turned out to be a very good hire for us. And Latara Rouse is back in place for those that might remember her. And we had neighborhood forums in the past that we had developed a pretty good following and a pretty good information sharing between county staff and our residents. And we're really trying to refresh that. And so Latara had suggested that we move into something just to have sort of a new name and get people maybe excited again. But we're going to call these community conversations. Our goal is to bring you out for an hour and a half tops. If you want to stick around after that, fine. But our whatever program piece would be an hour to an hour and a half, so that we're at least aware of your time. We'll probably move them around the community. So where the rec center certainly will be a location, Legacy Hall will be a location, maybe the library, but we'll pick probably public locations that are well known, so it's easy to find. But we are hosting our first of these February 18th at Legacy Hall.
Okay.
They'll start at 6 o'clock, I think. Am I making that up, Renee?
I think it might be 5:30.
Oh, yeah. It'd be nice if I get the right time.
It would be, but we'll put it on when this is all edited. It'll be correct on the screen.
Well, great.
There we go.
Even better. But again, February 18th at Legacy Hall is correct. Whether it's 5:30 or 6, might ask that you confirm that. And I'll give you a number in a minute to do that.
Okay.
But we do encourage residents to come out. Our topics, and again, we're going to try to keep them brief as a group and then break into some smaller groups and really give you a chance to interact and ask questions. But just in going into that, topics we're prepared for are a little more, and we'll present on as recycling, some of the election changes, the comp plan update of sort of the status and what's going on with that. In terms of comp plan, when people are wondering how we let development happen on that site across the street from them, the comp plan's how that happens.
Absolutely.
So your time to have an input or suggest something different is during the comp planning process. And we're going through that this year. So I would encourage residents to come find out more of that and be involved in the process. And then the other topic, we were talking about the 2020 census that's ongoing, and just sort of an update there. So we have some updates, but we'll be open to whatever questions or comments the community might have. And it really is, from our viewpoint, I mean, I absolutely enjoy talking to the community. And so we're hopeful that we'll have a good turnout there, and folks will want to talk back and have questions of their county government. So again, Legacy Hall, February 18th, and you can register online on our website at jamescitycountyva.gov. There's a little banner at the bottom, and it'll float through, and it'll have the community conversations, and you can register through that, or you can call Latara Rouse 253-6826 and speak to her directly, 253-6823. She will know the exact time.
Yes, she will.
Whether that is 5:30 or 6, but I'm close, and I'll be there in time for either one.
Absolutely. So, they could help set up, maybe. No, I'm kidding.
Depends on what time they get there. That's right. So the other part, though, I guess the last thing for me to really mention is we are doing a lot of budget work. Your staff and county staff has been working on that really through the fall to get it to our FMS department. They have been now assembling that. We're having initial meetings from county administration with FMS to put together a budget that will publish my recommended budget at the end of March. And so we'll give it to the community and the Board of Supervisors at the end of March, have some conversations through March and April with the hope of adopting it in the May time frame. So if you wonder where we are on budget, end of March, we're working hard on our side. End of March, we'll have a public document and be happy to share what's going on, and we'll talk more about that as we get it published.
Very good.
And beyond that, it's always a good time for me to be outside. Some days in the January, February timeframe are better than others.
Right.
But I would encourage people to, get out and be busy and enjoy the community. There always seems to be something going on. So sometimes you've got to look a little bit, but there's plenty going on in James City County and in the surrounding areas, and would just encourage people to get out and be part of that. And always, if they have questions or hear something or want to know why we're thinking this or recommending that, I would, again, just encourage them to call me, 253-6603. Scott Stevens, your James City County Administrator, and always happy to hear from our residents.
Very good. Do you have a snow prediction? Are we going to get snow before it's all over?
Well, it's easy to say yes. You haven't asked for how much and what that means, but I'm sure we'll have some snow before we get out of the winter.
I would like one snow day. Not that we close because we still work no matter what, but one day where it's like snow. And it's so pretty, and then it all melts, and it's 70 the next day.
Yeah, I think we're all patient for about a day is what I found.
Yeah.
After that, everybody's ready to get back out and see
Absolutely.
it. So I'm with you. Snow's great in short bits, and we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, I have some questions.
Yes, you told me.
Yes, and it's a new list.
Great.
We pretty much went through all the old ones, so new list. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What TV show or movie do you refuse to watch?
Gosh, I don't have a good answer for that, Renee. There's not anything that I would refuse to watch.
What would you rather not watch?
I'm not a Grammy show kind of person. If those awards, it's any of the award shows, nothing against them. They're just not my thing. So, but I don't refuse.
You don't.
But they're
I should have changed that word.
They're not my preference. How about that?
Okay, not your preference. All right. Okay. What was the? Okay, now this is best, which means favorite or something like that. But so I'm going to adjust on the fly. What was a book or series that you read that you really liked?
Gosh, and again, I go back to a book or series in terms of I read an awful lot. I haven't read a lot of series in a number of years, but it was Isaac Asimov that was into robots and things.
Okay.
And, almost 30 years ago, but I ran across the books in a shoebox again. I was like, I need to start that again. But that series really was good when I was much younger.
Okay.
And I'm sort of curious to start again to see, does it still captivate or capture my interest? Because they're pretty thick books, the ones that I stumbled across. So we'll see.
All right. Very good. Well, I may ask you about those later.
I may have read them.
I haven't read them, so you could really tell me anything, and I'd be like, oh, interesting. All right. Last question. What question would you most like to know the answer to, besides what exact time the community conversations begin?
What question would I most like to know the answer to? Because
you don't know everything. Nobody does.
Isn't that the truth?
Right. We learn every day.
Renee, there are a lot of things out there. I'm a curious type person. I certainly don't know it all. But I don't know what question I need to know the answer to at the moment. So you've worked to stump me. You got me a little bit back a few months ago. This one I probably don't have a great answer for you. So,
okay.
But I'll have some questions.
All right. Okay. Well, do you like the new list of questions? I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
It's a new year, right?
It is a new year. Exactly. Okay. Well, Scott, thank you so much as always. And we will definitely have you back.
Well, I'm always delighted to be here. Enjoy talking with you. And again, if folks have a question, find us, right?
All right. Absolutely. Well, that wraps up this episode of This Week in James City County. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please take a moment to go online and subscribe. That way you will be sure to never miss an episode. And when you're online, jamescitycountyva.gov/podcast, you're going to find all of our episodes. I believe that this is number 114. Wow. And we're over 14,200 listens.
Very nice.
Very excited about that. Anyhow, there's a list of all of our podcasts as well as a form. And on that form, you can give us feedback, show ideas. If there's anything you'd like for us to cover, we would love to hear from you. So once again, thank you so much, and we will talk with you next week.